you guys. I have a question for you. Are you afraid to sew pants? I happen to know that there is a lot of intimidation around sewing pants, and I'm here to let you know that there is help. Keep watching because I have something for you today. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are returning, if you're new here, visiting for the first time, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm Anita with Anita by Design, and here on my channel you will find step-by-step, very detailed sew-alongs and tutorials to help you with your sewing projects. If you're brand new to sewing, never even learned how to sew yet, then I have a beginner's sewing course on my YouTube channel that will walk you through the steps of learning the basic techniques of sewing. I highly recommend you go and check out that course before following along here today. Now, I understand that most of the intimidation about sewing pants has to do with fit. Many of us are afraid that we won't obtain a proper fit, so we just steer away from sewing pants. You don't have to do that because there are so many resources on the market to help us learn to fit patterns to our bodies. And I'm going to give you some suggestions today, starting with sewing pants that fit. This is from the Singer Sewing Reference Library. It's an older publication. They are no longer in print. However, if you go over to Amazon, you should be able to find a copy. That's where I got mine. I had the entire reference library. I think I had almost all the books in the library, and I don't know what happened to them, so I've been replacing them when I find them. And this one is very helpful because it guides you along the process of fitting patterns to your body to get a proper fit for pants. The other book I'm going to recommend is Pattern Fitting with Confidence by the late Nancy Zeman, and she has a section in this book that helps you to fit pants or pants patterns to your body. There are also websites like BluPrint, which was formerly Craftsy.com. BluPrint has all kinds of courses to help you obtain fit for your sewing, and I believe there are at least 2 that focus on fitting pants. I've watched a couple, and just go and check out those classes. It is a membership site, so you would have to join and become a member to take advantage of the classes, but I do believe that they still allow you to purchase individual classes. I'm not 100% sure on that, so go over to the website bluprint.com and check it out. There are resources there. There are YouTube videos that you can search to find videos on fitting pants to your body. So I recommend you go and do some research, learn how to fit. To become good at anything, it takes practice. Just practice, practice, practice. Get some cheap fabric or an old bed sheet and practice making the pants. For those of you who are new, for all of us actually, make a muslin. For those of you who are new to sewing, a muslin is a practice garment. And what you will do with a muslin is you sew up the main pieces. You don't insert zippers and buttons and all of the decorative stitching. You just put the main pieces together to check for fit. And then after you achieve the fit that you want, you can transfer the markings, the changes from on your muslin to your pattern piece. And that way you can sew the pants or whichever garment you're making. So practice as much as you can, and then you will be ready to sew your own pants. Now, we're going to be using New Look 6459. I made these pants a little while ago, and I love them so much that I decided to make a second pair and come here and do a sew along for you in case you're interested in making a pair of crop pants for yourself. Now, I'm going to rate this a beginner friendly pattern. It's easy to sew together. There are only 5 pieces required. You're going to cut 2 front pieces, 2 backs, 2 pocket facing pieces, 2 yoke pocket pieces, and 1 waistband. As far as fabric, you can check the back of the envelope for suggestions. The fabric that I'm using today is a linen blend, and yeah, so go ahead and purchase your pattern, your fabric and all of your notions and tools or supplies that you're going to need, I'm going to link everything in the description box below that I'm using for you if you need to purchase supplies. And yeah, we'll be ready to get started. One thing before I go, I want to bring to your attention that I had an issue with the waistband on this pattern. For some reason, it came up really short. The waistband that I cut for the size pant that I cut came up really short. So I extended my waistband, and I'm going to recommend that you measure your waist with your tape measure and then measure your waistband pattern piece before cutting to make sure that your waistband is long enough. If it's not, go ahead and extend the waistband the length that you need for your waist. After you've done all of that, come back and join me and we will get started. Okay, before we start sewing, there are a few things that I'd like for us to do, prep work, and these are things that I like to take care of in advance before I start sewing, because once I start sewing, I don't want to have to stop to do these things. Number one, we are going to prepare our waistband. So take your waistband and press on the interfacing to the wrong side of the waistband. After you have done that, finish off the long raw edge, the unnotched edge of your waistband. After you've done that, fold over 5/8 of an inch on the finished edge and press. Then our waistband is ready for when we come to the step of installation. Next, I want you to prepare your zipper. We're using an invisible zipper, so what you're going to do is you're going to press the teeth flat on the wrong side of your invisible zipper. When you open the zipper, the teeth are rolled over to the back of the tape. You're going to take your iron and press the teeth flat, making sure you're not pressing onto the actual teeth because they're plastic and they will melt. So press the teeth flat on the zipper tape. After you've prepared your zipper, you're going to prepare the zipper area for the back of your pants. So what I'd like for you to do, and this is not a step that's included in your instructions if you're following along with the written instructions that come with the pattern, but it's a good idea to stabilize this area because there is stress placed in this area during wearing when you're sitting. So take a strip of interfacing. I cut mine about 3/4 of an inch, and you're going to cut a long enough strip to go just past the notch. This notch is where the zipper stop will be placed. So just go about, I think that's maybe a little less than an inch past that notch. Press it on, and then you're going to fold over 5/8 of an inch on that edge, and then this is ready for when we install the zipper. Okay, so take care of those preparation, and then we will get started with the sewing. Okay, our first step is to insert stay stitching at the waist on our front and back pieces, and that's to prevent these pieces from stretching out of shape during construction. Here I have a front piece. This is the side edge where our pocket facing will go, and then here we have the front where the crotch curve is. So what we're going to do is insert a row of regular stitching 1/2 inch in from the raw edge, and we're going to go in the direction of the center front. Okay, placing the fabric in at the 1/2 inch mark. And I am using a coordinating thread because I will be wearing these pants, and you should be able to see the stitching since this is a lighter color fabric. And there we have our stay stitching. Okay, next we're going to sew in the darts on the 2 front pieces and back pieces. Starting at the bottom, you should have traced the dart from your tissue paper onto your fabric. So at the bottom, where the dart ends at the dart point, you're going to squeeze that together and pin in place. Then you're going to go up to the top and match the lines for the 2 dart legs. Match those up and pin in place. And check on the back to make sure that those lines are matching up. And then if you like, you can place another pin in the center or in between those two. I'm not going to. And then we're just going to sew right along that line that you traced onto your fabric. And as you near the end and get closer to the edge, you're going to sew right along the edge of that fold for the last few stitches. And that helps to give you a nice clean point without any puckering. Let's remove that and cut off our threads. Then we're going to just knot off the end. You can sew in about 2 or 3 knots, or tie off about 2 or 3 knots. And clip your threads. And we're going to go to the pressing station to press our darts, and I'll show you how I use my pressing ham to shape the dart. Okay, I have my pressing ham. I'm going to take my dart and just place it flat on the pressing ham and grab my press cloth. And I'm just going to press and fill in those stitches with a burst of steam. Then I'm going to open out the dart, and I'm going to place the dart on the ham. This is the narrower end of the ham. You can see that it curves down. I'm going to place the dart with the point at the end where it starts to curve down. Okay, and then I'm going to press the dart in the direction of the center front of the pant. Okay, I'm going to get my press cloth and place it here, and then I'm going to just press, and when I press I'm going to go in a rocking motion toward the tip of the dart. Okay, I'll show you again. And there I have my dart, and then you can turn it over and press it again on the right side. Okay, and there we have our dart. Okay, now I want to bring something to your attention in case some of you have noticed and are concerned. You've probably noticed that there is other stitching here on the front piece that I have not demonstrated. Don't worry, I'm going to demonstrate what I did. I got ahead of myself and forgot to sew in the dart and show you guys that, so I came back to demonstrate that before moving on to the other steps. All right, let's continue. Next, we will insert the pocket facing to the front pant piece. So let's turn this. This is the side slanted area, and we're going to take our pocket facing. I have the front pant piece placed down with the right side of the fabric facing up. I'm going to take the pocket facing and place it right on top of that slant with the right side of the pocket facing down. So these two pieces are placed with right sides facing. We're going to line up the pocket facing edge with the front edge, matching the markings that you placed on your fabric and the notch. And then we're going to pin those in place. If you transferred your markings properly, everything should line up here on this slanted edge. Also, very important, it should line up right here on the side edge. These notches should line up evenly on the pocket facing and the pant front. Now we're going to go and insert a regular straight stitch. Place our fabric under the presser foot. We're sewing at a 5/8 inch seam allowance. And begin stitching, starting and ending with a back stitch. Okay, there is our stitch. Very, very important. You want to make sure that your stitching ends just above where this notch is. Where the front and back notch meet together, your stitching should end just above that area. Next, we're going to layer the seams, also referred to as grading the seams. And the reason we do that is to reduce bulk in the seam allowance area. So this is the pocket flap. I'm going to turn the pants over. And this is the wrong side of the front piece. You can see my dart marking here. And I'm going to trim from this side, from the pant front side, and we're going to trim away the seam allowance down to about 1/4 of an inch. But before we do that, I like to pin, let's open out the flap. I like to pin the seam allowance that I'm not grading. I like to pin it away. So let's go ahead and insert some pins. Into that facing. Let me make sure you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to pin the seam allowance for the facing onto the facing just to keep it out of the way when I trim this seam. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, you're going to grab your scissors and just trim away to about 1/4 of an inch. All the way down. Okay, so now that that is trimmed down, I'm going to remove the pins. And we're going to open up the seam allowance from the pocket facing, and then we're going to trim that down just outside of the first seam allowance that we trimmed. We're not going to trim it even, we're just going to trim it down to just outside that the other seam allowance. And there we have our seams graded. Next, we're going to go to the pressing station. Okay, we have our pants laying flat. We're going to press that seam flat first to lock in the seam. So cover your seam with your press cloth and give it a burst of steam. Then we're going to open out the pocket facing. And we're going to, again, press that seam in this direction toward the pocket facing. I'm going to place my press cloth on top. And give it a burst of steam. Then we're going to turn it over to the right side and give it a press from the right side. I do a lot of pressing during the construction of my garments. because it makes a big difference in how neat your seams are and how professional your garments look. Okay, this next section will be a voiceover because I lost audio, didn't realize that my battery had died. I'm changing out my regular presser foot with my overcast presser foot because we're going to insert an understitch onto the pocket facing, and I prefer this foot because it gives a nice distance of stitching from the edge. Working from the right side of the fabric, we're going to sew a line of stitching onto the pocket facing. So I'm going to start from the bottom, and I will be lining up. We're going to sew a straight stitch along the facing, and I will line up the presser foot with the edge of the fabric, or the edge of that seam that we've already sewn in. And as we sew along, we're going to keep the foot, the right side of the foot, even along that seam. And you'll see how nicely it looks afterwards. Okay, lower the presser foot. And we're going to start with a back stitch and sew along that seam line. Making sure that we're keeping the right side, the edge of that presser foot on the right side along that seam line. And when we get to the end, we're going to back stitch. Okay, we're going to lift our presser foot, and here you see our understitching on the pocket facing side, and it's nice and even all the way down. Now we're going to take our front to the pressing station. We're going to fold the facing to the inside, and we're going to press it flat. Okay, we have pressed the yoke or the pocket facing to the inside of the front. Now we're going to attach the yoke and pocket piece to the front. So let's flip out the pocket facing. We're looking at the right side of the pocket facing and the front. We're going to take the yoke and pocket piece and place it on top of the pocket facing with the right side facing. And we're going to pin all the way around from one edge around the curve to the other side. We're going to pin the yoke and pocket piece onto the facing. Starting at the double notches on the curve, we're going to go ahead and insert a pin. And we will just continue pinning around the pocket until we have both pieces pinned together. Now that our pieces are pinned together, we're going to insert a row of stitching all the way around the pocket piece along the sides and the curve. Okay, let's place the fabric under the presser foot, and we're going to go ahead and sew a straight stitch all the way around, starting with a back stitch. Now, when you come up to the curve, you're going to use both hands to manipulate the fabric around the curve. So using both hands, just turn the fabric as you sew along. And what you want to keep your eye on is this 5/8 inch mark on your needle plate. I'm going to use that as my guide to help me line up the fabric and make sure that I get an even seam all the way around. So as long as the raw edge of my fabric is against that mark, then I'm okay. And just take your time as you're sewing along the curve so that you can control the fabric. And just continue to sew and turn with both hands along that curve. Okay, we're coming up to the end where we have another small curve. We're just going to maneuver the fabric on that last curve all the way to the end, and then we're going to do a back stitch. Okay, and there we have it. A nice even stitch all the way around. You're going to go and finish off your raw edges. Flip the pocket to the inside, insert a basting stitch at the side and top edge. Put this aside and we're ready to sew the backs together. Okay, we're looking at one of the pant back pieces with the right side facing up. On the inside, we have already reinforced our zipper area, and we've already pressed in the fold, the 5/8 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to open out the seam allowance and lay that flat on top of our work surface. Here we have the invisible zipper with the right sides facing up. I'm going to take the zipper teeth and place it against the fold. So the teeth of the zipper should be lined up with the fold on the pant back, making sure that the top edges are even. The zipper and the top of the pant are even. Line it up with the fold, and we're going to pin that into place. And you're going to stop your pinning right at the notch. This is where your zipper stop should be. I purchased a much longer zipper, so my zipper stop is way down. It's a lot longer, but I'm going to stop right there. So let's go ahead and continue. And then when I get to the area for my zipper stop, I'm going to place my pin perpendicular to the fold and the teeth. Okay, so there I have it pinned in place, and then we're just going to sew right along this area until we get here and insert a back stitch. If you have an invisible zipper, I encourage you to use it. If not, you can certainly use your regular zipper foot, and make sure you sew as close to the teeth as possible without getting too close, because if you get too close, then the zipper pull won't operate. It won't zip up. So let's go to the machine and sew in the stitch. Okay, I have changed out my all-purpose foot for my zipper foot, and I'm going to go ahead and insert the fabric with the zipper. And then we're just going to stitch. I'm going to start with a back stitch. Okay, I have sewn in my zipper on the one side. You're going to go and do the same thing on the other side, and then meet me back here and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, we have our zipper installed. Let's close it up to make sure it's invisible. And it looks good. Our top edges are meeting, they're even, so that's a good thing. Now the pattern instructions will have you to sew the crotch curve part of the crotch curve on the back next. I'm going to actually do it in a different order. I want to attach the fronts to the backs at the inseam next, and then we'll come back and sew in the crotch curve. So go ahead and grab your 2 front pant pieces, and we're going to pin those together and sew those seams in first. Before we move on to sewing the inseams together, I want to actually go ahead and shorten my zipper. So I'm going to insert a zigzag stitch. I'll show you from here. I'm going to insert a zigzag stitch. Let's see, let's measure this off. I'm going to go down about 5/8 of an inch from where the zipper, where the seam stops there, and then I'm going to insert a zigzag stitch over the top of the zipper teeth, and that will prevent the zipper from going past this area. Okay, so you can, if you have a longer zipper, you can do the same thing. Just insert the zipper in your machine and install a zigzag stitch, and you should be, and actually you want to drop your feed dogs. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, here is my zipper. Here is where the stitching ends. So I'm going to measure down about 5/8 of an inch, so about right here, and I'm going to mark that. Okay, then I'm going to insert, actually let's drop the feed dogs. Find out wherever the feed dog lever is on your machine and drop the feed dogs, and that will prevent the feed dogs from feeding your fabric or your zipper through the machine while you're sewing this bar tack. Okay, let's line that up, center the zipper teeth with the needle, and choose your widest zigzag stitch length on your, well, not your widest, just choose a zigzag stitch that's wide enough to clear the zipper teeth. And what you will do to test the width is to use your hand wheel and turn it to see where it lands with the zigzag. Okay, so mine is almost clearing. Let me move it over just a little bit. Okay, so that clears it. So I'm going to go ahead and sew in a bar tack. Okay, and that is my new zipper stop. Okay, then I'm going to trim off the excess. Okay, I'm going to trim off the end, and there I have a new zipper stop. And now for the inseams. Okay, I have the pants back with the right sides facing up. I'm going to take one pant front with the right side facing down, and we're going to line up the notches and the marks on the pants. Okay, so here I have my notch on the front and back inseam. We're going to pin that together. Then I'm going to go up to the top edge where we have our markings that you should have transferred onto your pattern or onto your fabric. We're going to pin that in place. And then we can place another pin in between if you'd like. And then we're just going to continue pinning all the way down the length of the inseam, and then we'll insert a straight stitch. Make sure that you re-engage your feed dog if you lower the feed dogs to sew in your zipper stop. Okay, now that we have inserted the inseam stitch, do the same thing to the other side. Then go and finish off the raw edges and press your seams toward the back of the pant. And then come back to the machine and we will sew in the curve, the crotch curve. Okay, now that we have our inseams sewn in, we're going to go ahead and sew in the crotch curve. I have already pinned the pieces in place, the front, or both front and back. And here I've just pinned all the way around the curve. And when you come to the area where the zipper is installed, you're going to pull the zipper back and then place a pin right in that area. Right there. Okay, then we're going to sew. I'm actually going to start at the opposite end. You can start at this end. I find it easier to start at the other end and then in my stitching here to line up with where the zipper is installed. So let's go to the machine and we're going to go ahead and insert this stitch or the seam for the crotch curve. Now as we come up on the zipper area, you want to make sure that the zipper is pulled out of the way and that your seam allowance is open. I'm going to remove my pin. I'm going to keep my finger here to hold this in place, and then we're going to stitch and make sure that we're meeting the stitch here. It's going to go just a little bit to the left of where the current stitching is, and that's okay. And then just slow it down when you get in this area. The main thing is not to sew into the zipper teeth. And then I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to do it one at a time and come back up. Okay, and if you take a look, there's our second row of stitching, and it goes just a little bit behind the stitching where the zipper is installed. So let's turn it to the right side and see what it looks like. So here is where our zipper ends, and you will see that we still have a nice smooth stitch extending beyond where the zipper ends. Okay. Now we're going to go and reinforce the seam in the crotch curve area. However, I'm not going to reinforce the entire seam. I'm only going to reinforce the area where it's curved. And to reinforce the seam, we will just sew over the first row of stitching that we inserted. And I'm going to start right above where the fabric where the pant starts to curve. And you're just going to sew right on top of the previous stitching. And then back stitch. Next, you're going to go ahead and finish off the raw edges, your seam allowances, and then go to the pressing station and press your seam to one side. Then we will sew up the side seams. Okay, to sew our side seams together, I have the front facing up. Then we're going to take the back and place it right on top of the front with the right sides facing. And first we're going to match these notches at the side seam here. and pin those in place, or pin the front to the back in place. Then go back up to the edge at the waist and pin that in place. Let's insert another pin in between those two. And then you're just going to continue pinning down the entire length of the side pant, and then we're going to sew that seam in place. Now, before you start sewing, I just want to recommend, especially if this is your first time sewing pants or sewing these pants, to use a basting stitch. That way, after you've sewn up your sides with the basting stitch, you can try on your pants and check for fit. And then if they fit properly, you can go ahead and sew in a permanent seam. If you need to make adjustments by letting out the seam a little bit or taking it in, then removing basting stitches are a lot easier than removing a permanent stitch. So you go ahead and baste your sides together. I'm going to sew in a regular stitch because I've already made these pants before, so I'm pretty sure that they will fit. Okay, let's go ahead and sew in a straight stitch all the way down. Okay, after you have sewn in your side seams, go ahead and finish off your seam allowances and press your seam toward the back of the pant. Then come back and we will sew in our waistband. Okay, to insert the waistband, let's unzip our zipper, and we're going to turn the pants over to the front. And we're going to take our waistband, and with the right sides facing, we're going to match up the notches. Here are our two notches for the waistband, and here are the two notches on the waist of the pant. So we're going to match those up and pin in place. And you will notice that the waistband is a little bit larger. We're going to ease that waistband in, and I'll show you that. We'll come back to that. Now we're going to take this mark on the waistband, and we're going to attach or pin that to the side seam of the pant. Then this other notch on the edge of the waistband, near the edge, we're going to attach that to the notch on the pant. Let's go back over to the other side and do the same thing, matching the marking to the side seam. And the notch to the notch. Now let's go back to the front and ease in this extra fabric. So the way I like to ease mine in when we're not using gathering basting stitches is I like to open it up like that, and then I'll take that center and match it up right there. Then again, I'm going to open it up and take the center and match it right there. And when I get to this area, I'm going to press the center of the extra fabric down to match the waistband. And then we have this area. I'm going to press it down onto the waistband. Here we don't really have a difference, so that's good. On the other side, you see the extra on the waist. I'm going to press down in the center and pin that together. In this area, the extra on the waist of the pant, I'm going to pin it, push it down in the center. When I say the center, I mean between the two pins in this area that I'm working with. Okay, that looks good, and that side looks good. Actually, there's a little bit of a opening on the waist, so I'm going to press that down in the center and pin. On this side, between these two pins, you see the gap there. I'm going to press it down in the center between the two pins. And here in this area, looks okay, but I'm going to press down because I think there's a tiny gap. And then we're good there. And then you're just going to continue doing that across the length of the waistband. Okay, we want to start sewing right where the edge of the zipper starts. So place your fabric under your presser foot and feel with your finger to see where that zipper tape starts, and lower your presser foot to see if you're falling in the right place. Or not your presser foot, your needle. Okay. Alrighty. I think I'm in the right place, so let me move that up a little bit, and then we'll begin sewing. And we're coming up on the edge, so you want to keep your finger there so that you can kind of feel where you should stop your sewing. Okay, and then back stitch. Okay, we have our stitch inserted, and when we flip our waistband up, that's what it will look like. Okay, now we're going to grade our seam allowances again. When you come to the end of the pant, make sure that the zipper is folded back. Don't pin the waistband to the zipper area with the zipper out. Make sure it's folded in, and then you're going to pin the waistband to the zipper tape like that. After you have finished grading your seams, this is what it should look like. You have the waistband facing, or yes, the waistband trimmed down close to the stitching, and then the pants trimmed a little bit above, a little bit deeper. And then when you get to the extension for the waistband, you're going to leave it. You're not going to trim that off. Now you're going to go to your pressing station and press your seam allowances toward the waistband all the way around, and then we're going to come back and close off the ends of the extension and the other side of the waistband. Okay, I got ahead of myself once again without recording, so I'm going to come back and show you guys what I did. I folded. Okay, so after you have pressed the seam allowance toward the waistband, you're going to work on the left side. This is the left back of the pants. You're going to work on the left side, and you're going to take your waistband and fold it back over onto itself with the right sides facing. And you're going to insert a row of stitching from the fold all the way down to the edge, making sure that you're just outside of the zipper. You don't want to sew onto the zipper teeth. Just make sure that you sew right outside of the zipper. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that again. Now, of course, you will have much more seam allowance when you sew yours. I unpicked this so that I could demonstrate it again on camera. Okay, so after you have placed that or positioned your waistband, go ahead and pin. I'm not going to pin because I have very little seam allowance left since I trimmed it. So go ahead and place it under the presser foot, lining it up to where it's going to fall just outside of that zipper foot. And after you have finished sewing that seam, you want to trim off your excess seam allowance and trim at an angle here in the corner before turning. Then you're going to flip it right side out, and you can use your point turner to push out that corner to make sure you get a nice straight corner. Okay, so there we have the left side of the waistband. Okay, now we're on the right side. This is the pants back from the right side, and this is the right extension. We're going to open out the waistband and fold it back with the right sides facing. And we're going to line up the raw edges. And then we're going to pin. Now your extension will not be this long. I extended my waistband because it was too long last time, but I'm going to be cutting off a good amount of this. So let's pin our raw edges together here. And I'm probably going to stop about here. So I'll place a pin right there. Okay, then we're going to insert a row of stitching along this path. We're going to go from this fold down and stop here where there's a crease in the fabric, which is the seam allowance for the pants attached to the waistband. So I'm going to sew down, pivot, and then go in this direction and meet the zipper without sewing onto the zipper teeth. Let's line it up here. Okay, with the needle down into the fabric, I'm going to lift my presser foot and pivot. Oh, I'm one stitch short. Let me go one more. There we go. I'm going to stitch over and stop right here where the zipper starts. And backstitch. Okay, so there I have my extension. I'm going to trim here. I'm going to trim at a diagonal, and then I'm going to layer my seams again. Okay, and then we're going to turn this right side out. And this is going to take a little elbow work. I'm going to use a pair of tweezers to get in there and pull this out. Now I'm going to take my tweezer, and from the inside I'm going to push the corner out gently so that I don't poke through the fabric. Okay, so keep working that until you get the corner that you desire. Okay, probably should have trimmed that corner because I'm not getting a sharp point, but I'm going to leave it well enough alone. Okay, and then we're going to go and fold over the waistband onto the inside, and we're going to press. And then this is what our waistband will look like on the right side. So fold your waistband to the inside all the way around, and then come back, and we're going to slip stitch the waistband onto the pants. Okay, we have our waistband pressed, and this is what it looks like on the right side. Now we're going to go ahead and whip stitch the band onto the pants. So grab your hand needle, which should be threaded with the coordinating thread, and we're going to start here on the end, and I'm going to catch the zipper tape and come up through the fold of the waistband. And I'm going to go in that same area again. And what I like to do to prevent my threads from tangling and knotting is I grab my needle, and then I hold the thread between my index finger and my thumb to keep it from knotting and tangling. Or you can use beeswax, run your thread through some beeswax. Okay, and then we're going to move over and just continue the same thing all the way from this end to the other end of the waistband. Make sure. Okay, it's just a basic whip stitch. We're picking up some of the pant, going through the fold of the waistband and continuing. When we come around to the other end of the waistband, we're going to finish off the same way we started, just by taking a stitch from the zipper tape into the fold of the waistband and pulling through. And one final stitch, I'm going to close up this little opening right here. I'm not sewing onto the zipper teeth. If you happen to have this opening in this area, you can just take a couple of quick stitches to close that up. Then I'm going to go in through the fold of the waistband all the way over, and I'm going to come out. And then I'm going to tie off. I'm going to create a couple of knots. And clip threads. And our waistband is attached to the pant. Okay. This is what the back looks like with it zipped and the waistband attached, and we will be flipping the extension to the inside, and this will be our closure. So we're going to start with the eye, and we're going to place that on the right side with the extension. So you're going to place the eye right along the edge where the zipper is. So we're going to place this right here. And as you can see, the waistband is really skinny. This hook and eye closure is a bit large for this size, this width waistband. It would be better if the waistband were thicker, but I'm just going to go ahead and use it anyway. Okay, so we're just going to sew that into place. And I'm going to come in through the front. And pull through. And then I'm going to turn it over so that I can let me pull it from the back. Okay. All right. I'm going to come up through the back, through the hole on the left side. Hopefully you guys can see this. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to stitch maybe 5 or hand sew 5 stitches. And I have my needle threaded with a double thickness of thread. Need the extra strength. So that's, I think that's 1 stitch. So let's go ahead and do about 4 more. Okay, I'm gonna come back up from the back to the front, but I'm gonna come up. Now you see where my needle is coming out? Instead of letting it come out through the front, I'm going to push it under this top layer of fabric and move it, come out from the back of the fabric to the front. I'm hiding the thread inside, in between the layers of fabric, so that we are not catching thread by extending the thread from here to there. Okay, now make sure that your eye is straight, and then we're gonna stitch this side together. And I'm pushing it because it's right at the edge. Okay, I'm gonna go in through from the top. And then I'm gonna go back and forth and stitch this in place. Okay, and then from the back, I'm going to insert the needle in between the layers of fabric, and I'm going to press it, go all the way down to the edge and come out. And then I'm going to knot it. And I'll create 1 more knot. And snip off the thread. And our eye is installed. Take your hook of your hook and eye. Again, place it right along the edge, making sure that you're keeping it straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through on the side, and I'm only going through the bottom layer of fabric. I'm not coming through on the outside of the waistband. and tacking it that way. So I'm going down into the fabric and coming up through the hole without going through to the front side of the waistband. And I'm going to turn it upside down. And this is where you need to make sure that it's straight because you're going to be tacking this down. So I'm going to go through in the same motion down into the fabric and out through the opening. I need to go down to the other side, so I'm going to insert the needle into the fabric and move it over to the end, the opening where the holes are on the other side. And we're going to do the same motion, making sure that your hook is even at the edge. Okay, and then our final stitches, we're going to go down into between the layers and come up on the other side where this last little opening is. Here we go. And we're going to tack this last edge down. Okay, I'm going to insert the needle between the layers of the fabric and come down toward the edge, the bottom edge of the waistband, and knot it off, tie it off. And one more. And the hook is installed. Now let's close it up. Zip it up. And then close it off, and that's what it looks like. So we're good. Now we're going to go ahead and sew in our hem on the pant. Okay, the final step is to sew in the hem on our pants. Before you press up your hem, go ahead and try on your pants to see what size hem you need. If you're taller, then you may need a deeper hem. I pressed up a 1.5 inch hem. So if you're taller, you may need more, or a shallower hem, less of a hem. And if you're shorter, you may need more. If you're shorter and you need more than a 2 inch hem, then I would suggest cutting off some of the hem allowance and then pressing it up. Okay, so after you have determined the size hem, go ahead and press up. First, you want to finish off the raw edges of your hem and then press up the seam allowance. And then we're just going to sew in a straight stitch all the way around the hem. So I'm going to remove the flatbed on my machine to expose the free arm. It's really helpful to sew in tubular pieces because the garment fits right around that free arm. So if your machine has that, then go ahead and use your free arm. And I like to start on the seam where the end seam is. Okay, so we're going to sew right along the edge of wherever that the raw edge is, the edge of your hem. So determine on your machine where the sewing line will be. For me, let's see, here's where my hem ends. So I'm going to sew right along this line. Okay. And we're going to begin and end with a back stitch and just sew all the way around. you're coming back around to the beginning stitching, you want to make sure that your stitching ends in line with where you began. And back stitch. And there we have it. Our hem is sewn in. We are done. All you need to do is give it one good press and you are ready to wear your pants. Well, that's it. We are done with our pants and here they are. Yes! I'm gonna go put them on, style them, and get some pictures so I can show you guys. And listen, when you make your pants, when you make anything for yourself, style your stuff. Don't just put the thing on and go out the house. Style your stuff so when people see you and they say, oh, that is so cute, where'd you get that? Then you'll say with pride, I made it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this sew along. If you have, hit the like button below. And if you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe button. And after you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell notification. That way you will be notified when new content hits my YouTube channel. And there is more coming. There is another tutorial in the works already. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe. And thank you so much for stopping by. And remember, when you live in your design, it is from there that God shines. That means when you live according to the way that you have been created, it is from that place that God will use you to bless other people. Thank you for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Bye.